Hi, welcome back. You are listening to 3 Bellybuttons COVID special episodes. This is the 5th one. My name is Xingzhou, your host. For this episode, I have invited 4 artists, Dr. Kate Just, Dr. Tal Fitzpatrick, Zara Sullivan, and Nathan Beard, to talk about their art project that they have created during COVID-19 and shared their creative process in this COVID downtime. First of all, I would like to pay respect to the elders, both past, present, and emerging, of Kulin Nation and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. And I would like also to mention that this conversation is held via Zoom. Dr. Kate and Dr. Tal and Zara and I are in Melbourne, NUM, and Nathan is in Perth. Also, for this episode, I'm going to break the tradition of this podcast that the speakers give a self-introduction. Instead, I will introduce them myself just because those artists will talk about their own artworks in this conversation. Okay. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Kate Just. Kate was born in Hartford, Connecticut, and migrated to Melbourne in 1994. Kate works with various media, such as sculpture, installation, neon, textile, and photography, and focuses on feminist theme. Kate is best known for her inventive and political use of knitting. As an established artist, Kate has exhibited both internationally and nationally. Her work is held in numerous public and private collections, including the National Gallery of Australia, Art Bank, Urgus Collection, the City of Port Phillip, Wangaratta Art Gallery, Ararat Regional Art Gallery, and Proclaim Management Collection. Kate is currently lecturing and working at VCA, the University of Melbourne, as the head of Master of Contemporary Art program. Dr. Tal Fitzpatrick is an artist, researcher, craftivist, and a community development worker. Dr. Tal was born in Israel and migrated to Australia in 1996. Tal's creative practice sits across the disciplines of socially engaged art, craft, and activism. Her work looks to drive positive social change by engaging diverse group of people in the hands-on process of making, which create safe spaces for having complex conversations. Her projects, the PM Place Quilt from 2015 to 2017 and the UDHR Quilt Project 2016 to 2018 are both held in collection of the Museum of Australian Democracy at Old Parliament House, Canberra. Zara Sullivan, also known as Zara Sully, is a queer, identifying, multidisciplinary and photography-based artist. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Photography major from VCA. Her art practice explores the queer experience through a contemporary lens, with a focus on queering the mundane. Zara has been actively exhibited in Melbourne, NUM, and works as a board member for Chocodero Art Space. In 2018, she was the finalist of the Major List Travelling Scholarship and Blake Prize. Last but not least, I would like to welcome Nathan Beard. Nathan is a Perth-based interdisciplinary artist. His practice drawn upon his Thai Australian heritage. In his practice, Nathan uses archives of imagery from various archives sources, including museum catalogues, the internet, the family photo albums, to deconstruct an understanding of his own Thainess as positioned in a Western culture context. His work asks what it means to search for and create an authentic sense of identity out of a connection to intimate personal history and cultural heritage. Nathan holds a Bachelor of Arts with first-class honours from Curtin University. His work have widely shown in Australia. In 2017, Nathan was selected for the 4A Beijing Studio Program, a finalist for the John Strainer Prize, and highly commended as a finalist in the Fremantle Arts Centre Print Award. In 2021, Nathan will be undertaking the Australian Council residency at ACME Studios in London. So here I'm very honoured to have all artists to introduce their project and talk about their creativity in COVID time. In the search for artistic inspiration myself, I have come across the Kate and Tel's hashtag COVID19 quilt project. The images of this project are frequently circulated on my social media and platform. The conversation starts with Kate and Tel, talk about the history of their collaboration and the project COVID-19 Quilt.
So we met like six or 7 years ago when Tel first came to Melbourne from Queensland, and I guess connected over our shared interest in research into craft and how it shapes social change. It's just been really lovely to get to know each other, work on her research, and she's worked on things I've done. And we've both done, I guess, over the years, a lot of large-scale socially engaged projects. And so when we sort of thought of this, it was like it's a perfect pairing to kind of do something big together from the start. So maybe that's just the beginning of why us and like how we work together. And maybe
you worked together before COVID.
We've worked on each other's projects, but we haven't done a project together in collaboration. So this project is like a full collaborative project that we started together at the beginning of April. We kind of decided we were going to do something. We were both having to stay away from our studios, and everything was real weird and stressful with the onset of COVID, and really just a really uncertain time, not just here in Australia, obviously, but all across the world. I guess, because both of our practices do really integrate across the craft and social media nexus, it just really made sense for us to kind of essentially reaching out to our community. We have between us a really big network of international artists and makers who are interested in this kind of space. We just kind of wanted to reach out and create a space where we could connect, we could come together, we could share what we were making and how that was helping us process how we were feeling and our experiences during this time. So that's essentially what the project is. It's a digital quilt. So people are always asking us like, when are you making the quilt and sewing it together, which we are not doing that. So it's the actual feed itself where the squares all join up. That is the quote quilt. And we're pledged to kind of continue to grow that as long as this situation with COVID-19 continues to be a global pandemic. And a couple of months in now, it's starting to grow and develop in really interesting ways. And there's like new kind of things happen around the world, like the Black Lives Matter stuff at the moment in particular. We're starting to see that be reflected in what's coming up in the quilt. So it kind of represents this really nice time capsule almost of what's happening and what's happening over this time.
Yeah, and I would just add that, so you mentioned the hashtag. So the hashtag COVID-19 quilt is how we often are, because other people are promoting the project, we then find that people have often just used the hashtag, but the account is at COVID-19 quilt, and people actually send us via direct message an image of a textile square they're working on and a short text about their name, their city, their country, and what their experience, how it relates to the experience of COVID-19. So we've had about probably almost 32 countries in the world now. People have submitted in different languages as well. So we're getting a really amazing global picture of people's experience through craft, and everything from people aged like 7 all the way up to grandparents, people who aren't trained as artists or makers to people who are really highly professional artists. So really a very broad spectrum of community and of society.
So I guess, the most just seeing all those Instagram photos with that hashtag, I personally just feel like it's kind of use this image to give a visual kind of presentation of this people, like a large community, which is, especially in COVID time, we all sort of trapped in our own little space, and then it's hard to, for me, living by myself, only the visual person is myself. So I guess, like through your project, you sort of like can see a people, can see individual, and then by this kind of common hashtag, you get a sense of like a large community and feel like you're not alone. I think that's my take. Is certainly you can, you have some visual sort of pinpoint that to have this kind of registration. You are not alone, and I think that's really heartwarming and project. And I guess, like you didn't mention before, like you approach people, but I still have a bit of question on, do you send messages to people? How do you recruit all those people? Like purely through your friend or network, a personal network, or how do you get in touch with people? And then, how do you make that grow in this like global events now?
So the majority of contributions that we've gathered were just a response. So we started this project by doing a call out. We welcome everyone to participate in this project. All you have to do is send us an image with a few words on your experience of COVID and how the process of pen making is fitting into your life at this particular moment in time. There are lots of amazing artists and makers that we really admire and who were making work that really fit in with the project that we approached, just again by direct message, being like, hey, we love your work, we'd love to share it. And we kind of are continuing to do that as well. But the majority of people have come to us because they've seen, like the hashtag, and they've had something that they wanted to share with us and with the community.
And I guess what also happens, like we all know with social media, is like once we started the call outs and then we did the language translations into many different languages, and we had people who did those in the community for us who offered to do those. So then people start sharing through their own stories, and then it reaches their network. And so it becomes an incredible multiplicity that happens. And then like Craft Magazine UK and a craft magazine in the US featured us. And we had people starting, we had one from New Delhi, India, at Singleton. And that post went pretty much viral. It had like more than 10,000 likes. And now, it keeps going up and it's being shared all around the world now. And so once things start being shared, it grows exponentially, and you don't have to do as much because it's generating from the community of people who've contributed. And so we do this like little things as well, like quilt quotes is a little thing in stories that we save in our highlights. And that's where we take a one-line excerpt from the maker's statement about their work, and we put it up in the story with an image of it. And so that's a more encapsulated version of it, and those things tend to get reshared as well. So it's just a lot of that.
It sounds like you have another online avenue for this project, or that's just Instagram and social media platform. Do you create another website for this project?
No, we share this across, so both of us have our own Instagram pages, obviously. So we share that both across those and across our Facebook pages too. And we both have a bit about the project on our websites, but it is the heart and soul of the project is that Instagram page, and that's where it's all come from. So it's not housed anywhere else.
Yes, you planted a seed and then you just let grow.
And I think that came from, because we both had that experience of doing that with other projects. Mm-hmm. Like Tal did that with the UDHL, and I did that with my feminist fan project. It's where you use this kind of regularity of posts and narratives and sharing, and it sort of builds its own momentum.
Yeah.
But do you fear, like, do you worry that maybe that would get it out of hand. But I can't really foresee this one how could wrong that goes. But like I feel like you started and then you let that grow itself, and with all the mechanism of sharing, and that's all part of it.
Have a sense of like needing to control
Mm.
this in that way. Like we're very happy for it to be something that the people who are participating feel ownership of.
Yeah.
It's not something we're trying to like
Yeah.
to author in that very direct way. It's just really a provocation, something for people to respond to, and part of the artwork is the interesting ways that people respond to and become a part of that.
Yeah, and I think that also it's when we started it and the call out first went out, we were getting like 20 posts a day or messages a day, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but you have to kind of edit each one and have conversations about which image and so forth. So it felt quite intense at the beginning, and it slowed down a bit where now it's just like a steady few every day. And there's like 2 of us, so we each do a couple every day, and it's like slowly growing. It feels totally manageable. But I think that for me the most interesting thing about it also is that in COVID, which is showing so much the structural inequalities in the world, whether it's in healthcare or in relation to gender or race or
access to services, access to government support,
housing, everything. These things are coming through in the quilt, and I think that it's making a tangible material record and archive of those kinds of experiences and voices from people very directly and personally. And I think that in this time when these things are happening, these are the voices that can get lost in the common record. And that's something in my own practice that I'm always interested in, like the canon or the official record and what gets recorded. And so I feel like that's the work this is doing as well, is it's allowing a space for anyone who wants to voice their reality right now. And it's voicing really difficult realities.
And we've dedicated, as part of this project, we're kind of dedicated to ensuring that is a legacy of this project, that it's an act of remembering. So in time, like say in 50 years, there will be a record of this, and hopefully it's something we can learn from in the future. But it's definitely
And then my question then goes, how do you archive this?
We want to make a book. We need a good publisher.
So we need to publish about it. We do plan to adapt this to exhibit it, so there'll be records and catalogs and that kind of thing as well. But yeah, we want to write both academically and in a way that's accessible more broadly to the community. We plan to document this work.
Yeah.
So when you collect the images, do you do what I just did, just kind of search for hashtag quilt COVID-19 quilt?
We'll be using the official quilt, which is the actual feed of our Instagram page.
Yeah, the at COVID-19 quilt account. And then we do still follow up on the hashtag, but some people are using the hashtag and they're not talking about us. And when we contact them and we say, would you like to be in our quilt? And then they don't reply, we go, okay, they don't intend to be with us. They're just making a quilt in COVID-19.
Yeah, and there are lots of people making quilts right now. So, and there are lots of artists doing actual quilts, like collaborative quilts, where they are asking for people to contribute a square. So in a more traditional sense of a collaborative quilt, where they'll then post the square to someone who'll put it together into an actual physical quilt. So part of the hashtags is actually people doing those kinds of things via Instagram. And there are starting to be other similar projects to ours where they're like also collecting things on a feed, but
yeah. So another question is, obviously this project's still going, and you sort of like also monitoring how that images change through the current changes in political climates. And I guess, by watching your project growing, how does that project affect your own practice?
I think for me, I'm working on the Anonymous Was a Woman project which is an ongoing hand knitting panels that say Anonymous was a woman, that looks at the erasure of women from the canon of art, and also the way women are facing other forms of kind of erasure or lack of value around their labor in society, in broader context of society. And so for me, it's a really nice intersection with that work, because that work is a work performed solo that's very laborious and is kind of looking statistically at things that are often like a burden of labor or an erasure that's born or bared alone, experienced alone. And so there's something about this COVID-19 quilt that speaks to the other side of that, which is making your own historical record, working with community, voices of people of all genders actually talking together. So it's actually just a nice counterpoint for me. I'm not sure how you...
Yeah, this for me builds really strongly on my pre-existing practice, where I look to digital engagement as a way to get people to have conversations about issues that are happening in the world and try to move people from discussion to action around particular issues of injustice. So I think this is a nice continuation of my practice in that sense.
Great. I think I might just move to next project. Let's talk about Zara's work. I come across your project through your Instagram TV. Yeah, would you like to introduce about this project?
Yeah, sure thing. So Angel Exchange is hosted by Bus Projects and was created by myself. And it's an exchange in which I send an angel that I've cast out of resin to an artist and hope that they will send me an artwork back in exchange. So that's kind of like the very broad basis of the project. It was also done by an open call, but I did heavily rely on Bus rather than my personal network, but also posting it myself. And so I have a number of friends involved, but it's also been great to have people that I've never met be involved too. And for me, it was really about trying to create a physical connection in a time where there is no physical intimacy happening. So it's like, it's run by the postal service. So I send the angels off in the post and then I receive the artworks back in the post, which has been really special in the sense it's like a little surprise coming to me every day and I get to see what it is.
Yeah, that's what I watch your TV is like watching you. It's quite addictive, I have to say, to watch you unpacking those packages. Like, it just remind me all those like a fetish, like those kind of YouTube channel about watching people unwrapping. Yeah, the thing about this physical, like watching you making this physical contact to all those receiving parcels and surprise, and you in the video you would tell the audience immediately what you think about those works. I really like your intuitive respond, but I think you handled all the artworks really carefully. My big question is like, why Angel? Like, what's the special thing about Angel?
As silly as it sounds, it's not necessarily that special.
Okay.
So yeah, I make jewelry and I've been casting the angels into earrings, and that's what I've been doing as like my little business at the moment. But for me, the angels also are a symbol that's kind of understood generally by most people. And it's something that's kind of magical and mystical, which I find this time is as well. It has that sense of unknowing. And we don't really know much about angels. And I'm also like thoroughly interested in iconography, and I like to queer up my icons as much as I can. So I thought I'd do this with the angel.
Do you make the angels?
Yeah, so I make the angels, and I have a mold with 2 different types of angels. So there's one that's sitting there with its hands under its chin, like in that, well, I forget what the fashion brand is, Fiorucci, I think it is.
Yeah.
So like they kind of resemble that one, and then there's another one that's kind of standing up in a sense.
Okay.
So
another question is, I think can be, how do you collect all those physical like post address from people? I find that like it's really difficult. I think now like email seems like really common, information people give. But when you ask people the physical like postal code, and suddenly it feel like you ask a lot from people. Like it's a kind of private information. So how do you get people to send you the postal address?
I think it's very much just based on a general trust. So people actually email me their postal address, and that's how I send it off to them. And it's really just based on trust, even though we don't necessarily know one another. And it's the fact that they know that I'll be also trusting them with my address and sharing this private information. It's quite intimate. Yeah.
So how many have you received so far?
I think it's looking at about 65 at the moment.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Does
that mean you keeping making those angels every day?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. So because we're still in COVID, have you developed a bit of process disinfection process for all those works or parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my hands are very dry. I've been using a lot of hand sanitizer, and you have to spray them and wipe all the outside of the parcels.
Oh.
And then once they're open, they're generally safe because it's 5 hours that it is. And I chose not to wear gloves just because I didn't want to keep wasting the rubber. So after each parcel, I kind of dodge for a moment and pop some more hand sanitizer on off screen, just to avoid that contamination. And then, all the angels I have to decontaminate before sending them off, which I was a bit scared about. I was worried it was going to change the resin, but it didn't, very luckily.
Yeah. And do you ask artists to give you artworks that have to be angel theme related?
They're welcome to send me absolutely anything they like. It doesn't have to be related to COVID or angels. It is nice when they are related because I get a little like, oh, they've been inspired by this. But a lot of the works have been COVID related, I think, but also some of them haven't been, which I found really fascinating, that people are able to abstract themselves from the current situation and still make work that's not related.
What's the strangest things you have received so far?
Oh, I don't know if anything's been particularly strange. I would say everything's been pretty great. I think the strangest thing for me.
Yeah.
So one of my friends an animator, and they sent me a print of one of their animations. And then in the parcel was also a USB with the digital animations. And I found that really funny that this digital file has gone across with the post as opposed to just sent digitally.
Yeah. So instead of sending you a digital video link, I'll give you actually USB. Okay, so this is probably stranger. What do you have a favorite so far? It's probably hard to answer, I guess.
Oh, that's really hard. I got a piece of kyanite, which is a crystal that I've even forgotten who the artist is that sent it to me, sadly. And they'd written on it, but it's this crystal that my mum has used to take away the extra energies of technology, because that's something that she's interested in. And it was one of these crystals I'd never thought about. And then I received this beautiful stick in the post with some writing on it. And it just really caught me by surprise.
Yeah, great. And then this project still going. Do you have a deadline for this, or?
I don't have a deadline just yet, but I'm going to have images of all the artworks up on Island, which is Bus Project's digital content website. And that looks like it'll be launching around the beginning of July. So I'm hoping it has very much dwindled down at the moment, which is kind of nice, being less covered in resin. So yeah, 1st of July, but I don't think I'll expect to receive everything for quite a long time. So I did have a few international people involved with the project. So those parcels take much longer to be sent and be received.
Yes, sounds like eventually Zara, your work will kind of similar like Kate and Tal's project. You will create this kind of mosaic image presentation of this project. And I think I would like to ask the same question, like as I asked Kate and Tal, like, has this project or been working on this project sort of impact on your practice or your time in COVID? Like, has that impacted your creative life and personal life?
Yeah, I think it definitely has. I'm beginning my Masters of Art Curatorship, and I think it was a really nice introduction into curating for me, as it's like a combination of both my practice as an artist and as a curator, which I've really enjoyed. And also it gave me something to do, which was really nice. Keeping my hands busy every day, making these angels every day, it gave me a really nice process to have something to look forward to and something to do, which was really special, because I think I very much struggled in the beginning just to fill my days up with something that felt right, not necessarily productive, but felt right.
And because you said these images were published on Islands Island, that publications, BUTS project, will there be a written component to this?
It's just going to be the image and then the artist's name. So it won't even have an artwork title. Just to keep that, just because like some people didn't send me titles of artworks, and I don't want to have some with and some without.
And what are you going to do with the physical artworks? Great question.
I'm still not sure about it. I have hopes that I might exhibit all the works eventually. Just because I'm fortunate enough that I do have the physical archive now, which is what I really am fortunate to have with this project. So maybe one day I'll exhibit all the works, but we will see.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's such a nice experiences of collecting all those works and through COVID time. As if I know you send off your angels, but at the same time you kind of keeping receiving all those parcels, and it's a great excitement. And then I can imagine that how that receiving these unknown parcels can be enrich your time in COVID. Maybe let's move to Nathan's Animal Crossing project. And
yes.
I be honest, I don't play Animal Crossing. Any of you playing that? No? Okay, great. The time I kind of know about Animal Crossing because my friend Sophia Tsai, and she's really passionate about it. There's games, and I heard lots about these games. And because of her, I started paying more attention on these games, and then through the time I read artists start to do art project on that platforms. Apparently there's 13 million people playing this game because of Sophia. So I heard Nathan your project on Animal Crossing. And then that's actually relate to your show in First Draft, White Guilt. Maybe, would you like to talk about how this project come about, and why do you want to kind of extend your show to Animal Crossing?
Yeah, the exhibition at First Drafts opened in March, just as certain restrictions and borders were closing. So at the beginning of the exhibition period, I had flights and accommodation sorted for the end of the month to come back and do the public programming, which is a forum. It's just artist talks between the 4 different exhibitions that are on. And as a result of the increased restrictions and forced lockdown because of COVID-19, we were all of the exhibiting artists were given free rein to sort of devise their own sort of unique concepts for how a public program would take shape online. So after the initial lockdown, I kind of felt seized up in my own studio, and I was suddenly sort of thrown into this sort of disarray because there was a lot of potential deadlines that then just sort of had this question over them as to when they would go back to normal, if they would proceed, and in what form they would. So like 13.5 million other people, I just kind of sunk into the game as a form of
Yeah.
So it all started quite innocently. And then when JD, director at First Draft, was in touch with how we would progress with an online forum, I kind of half jokingly said, well, I've been spending pretty much all of my time just like on this game, building, like performing chores, essentially, to structure my days. I just sort of half jokingly said, like, why don't I just rebuild the show in the game and then people can tour it on the island? And then it took off from there. So essentially the game is, for people that are unfamiliar with it, you essentially create your own little desert island paradise. But because of how online interactivity works with this Nintendo Switch console, it means you can invite strangers or friends over and you can sort of build the island together and just like run around and spend time. And so the game for me already had an aspect of social fulfillment. I was already connecting with friends in isolation just by like retreating into this, digital paradise.
It felt like,
and
when
then,
first life failed, let's all move to the second lives.
yeah, no, it was very much that. And it honestly just launched at like this crazily opportune time where it suddenly had all of this cultural heft and this wave of zeitgeist behind it. So it was pretty all encompassing, and like just especially with like a very online culture. There was so many memes and that sort of thing, just around the concept of this game and how much headspace I think it sort of began to occupy with people, just because it was an escape. There's something really comforting about being able to just perform routine actions over and over again. In that sense, it fulfills it fulfilled the sort of gratification that I would be getting just like grinding away in the studio at like some closer deadline that was around the corner or something like that.
Well,
yeah, so
kind of, mentality I can relate to, like crafting as well. Like when you, when you engage this repetitive, like knittings and sewings, and that's create a similar sort of, I guess, the safe space.
Yeah, and I can definitely draw a same like corollary between this sort of processes I use in my work a lot, of embellishment and decoration anyway. It's all hand applied. So it's very much that same sort of like physically taxing stuff that you're describing there. And it's just like reenacting it.
Did you analog your show from First Draft to this island, or you sort of change a little bit?
Out of the necessity of the way that the game gives you 40 unique design tiles that you can then use in like a range of applications in the game. And so what we wanted to do with the online programming for my exhibition and online archiving for it was just sort of create like a unique online experience that could be engaged with, that was different to what a lot of art spaces were putting online as content. So it's very much a case that spaces felt like they weren't very equipped to retain attention online. Just with like a lack of content being produced from these cultural spaces, it certainly was like very apparent a struggle with a lot of them to sort of capture the imagination. So I think using the context of a very popular game already, we had a bit of an upper hand in that sense. But so the game itself gives you 40 unique design tiles in a way that some museums and galleries were cottoning on to the versatility of it and being able to like produce online content. You saw spaces creating like wallpaper across like the walls and the floors to like recreate like Yayoi Kusama infinity rooms, or Andy Warhol like soup can wallpapers. But what I wanted to do was try to create as like sort of estimation of my exhibition within the context of the game. So not relying on one unique 32 by 32 pixel square that would just be repeated in a space, but sort of using a photo developing tool that's already built into the game to try to upload my work broken into segments and then repatch them together in the context of this sort of like digital exhibition space.
I
Yeah.
watched a little bit. I think you on the first draft, because I don't play this game, so I don't know how I can't get to your island. But on the first draft website, they post a little bit Vimo videos of I guess that avatar was you. You walk along your place on the island. So I kind of get a visual, like lots your print work and photographic work was a transplant into this space. So but in the physical exhibition you got some sculpture. Is that because the limit of the games that you can't really put that in, or you are working on that?
Yeah, for this work in particular, so when you're uploading the imagery into the game, it does severely reduce the quality of the image because it's so pixelated and so reduced just in that sort of color scheme and all of that sort of thing. So 3D work wasn't translating very well at all. It was very much 2D works were having some of the integrity of the actual documentation preserved in the context of the game. So I still was trying to work out with like the different tiling and placement and moving around of stuff to be able to play with the same sort of layers of, I guess it's visual density. That's what I was playing with the original exhibition, just trying to use different formats of presentation for prints. So, whether it was mounted or direct on the wall as vinyl or pinned or framed or embellished in a frame, sort of recreate that sense of like density in the space as well.
And on the sort of bit of blurb of this project, and it says that you also do the tours for people to come to your island. So how many visitors have you toured to your show on the island?
So we did two tours a day every Saturday for the last 3 weeks. So we just today wrapped up the final tour. So it would have meant that we had 36 unique visitors coming in total.
Wow.
And
so do they
which is great.
Follow you around? Like they explore and you like themselves, or what's the principles? Like what the guidelines like you gave them?
Okay. So we ran it very much like an appointment viewing at the galleries. So JD from First Draft would facilitate and introduce the concept of it, and I would be present. And then what we would do is orchestrate a Zoom meeting at the same time as the online play. So it would mean that we could still do back and forth and volley questions and talk about influences. So we devoted a big chunk of it to explaining the work for people that didn't get to see the original show, just to explore some of the concepts behind the work. And then as we were going through different patches of the island, and then we'd eventually get to the house where the exhibition was upstairs in the home. And the way that I designed the rest of the home, it was sort of riffing on this concept of my house on my island, being like a contemporary gallery there. So there was a lobby, there was a storeroom, there was a shop, and my studio downstairs.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well,
does
like
the shop sell your artwork?
So there's a custom design that I put up based on one of my works. So essentially recreating one of my works pixel by pixel. And then in the game, there is a design portal that you can access where you get a design, you get a creator code. And then from that code, you can download any unique works they've uploaded to the internet to share freely. So a lot of, like the majority.
Sounds like so much from the actual show. Sorry.
No, it presented its own unique challenges, which is like, it was refreshing because it invigorated the context of me playing the game, because it reshaped this idea of it being a tool for procrastination or to preserve my own sanity, and it just gave it a bit of a sense of focus,
Yeah.
in being I guess forced to deliver an online experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, that's come to my question because the title for your this Animal Crossing project is White Guilt 2.5, but then the title at the first draft is White Guilt 2.0. So where's that 5 come from? Do we miss the 4? Like, where's the 4?
Yeah, it's essentially White Guilt 2.5. So
Okay.
it's as close as a version as I could get to the version of the exhibition that was at first draft, but within the game space. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Gotta say, it's just it's pretty funny that even the context of like thematically shifting the work into Animal Crossing, it still kind of overlaps with similar themes as my usual work anyway. So the themes behind the exhibition White Guilt 2.0 were examining this sort of anxious cultural in-between space where I was confronting my own sense of coming to terms with, you know, elements of cultural performance and my sort of cultural in-betweenness being Thai Australian, and how it relates to specific hand gestures in Thai culture. And that theme of cultural authenticity translated into the video game sort of has this strange sense of overlap. So it was
can you elaborate more, like how does, because like in the your actual show, which is the show you can sort of digitally experience on First Draft website. They create this virtual 360 degree sort of viewing of your space. So from that sort of interactive mapping of your shows, I sort of get a sense of like a print wallpaper appropriated, like a post images, and which is like as you said, the culture signals is a very clear. But when you move that to the Animal Crossing, from culture in between maybe shifted to a different, more like a reality and a virtual space. Well, that's just me sort of like trying to understand that kind of what you just said, you know, this kind of thing overlapping, like in between. Can you elaborate a bit more about like you find this, the connections of this two expressions?
I think that you're right in the work really sort of probes at like what is authentic about a work when it is presented or engaged with in that sort of an online sphere. So in this context of the game, I guess it's challenging that it is its own new thing once it's represented in that sort of online format. So you're encountering it in its own terms as a digital experience, especially this body of work as it's translated in a video game.
I see.
So I think it's approaching that sort of more serious existential question about the role of an art space online, but in a playful way. And I think a lot of conversations that I was having with people were there was this sense of I guess it's sort of dread about like the role, like how fickle the role of these institutions were when faced with a crisis like this, where when audiences are taken out of the equation, what's the usefulness or the purposefulness of those spaces? Like they can so easily become, I don't know, I guess neglected. And I just think being confronted with that was very
I think like just kind of learning about all of your project. I find like all the projects that people been doing COVID, I find out when, you know, those institutional like space failed in this particular time, and then sort of artists sort of started, you know, new spaces started, but this new space is either on social media or Animal Crossing, or the traditional host, service. And I feel like artists sort of are getting closer to their immediate audience. Like I feel like you started this a direct conversation with your audience. You kind of start to locate where your art at. And another thing about your project is that's probably a bit of far-fetched, but I feel like your show, like a physical show, is about hand gesturing and looking at hand gesturing as a culture signifier or signs. When you play the games, you using different hands. You have using two hands to control the buttons. You're sort of like indirectly linked to this kind of hand in the culturally and a hand in that particular game context as well. Like people have to use their hand to be able to see your work, enter this space. And I find like that kind of interesting connections of this, like a game show in the games and then the other shows.
Well, I feel like I definitely got a sense of like awareness over my hands, because I feel like I've got like this RSI in my thumbs from controlling the joystick.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Sinking those hours into it.
The thumb. It's all about thumbs now.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else have a question to each other's project?
I just had a question for Nathan about the spelling of the word guilt. GILT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's this very it's a pun on the idea that I guess you'd normally be considering it framed around a sense of white guilt because of my sort of sense of shame and performativity and the way that I felt othered by being forced to perform the Y, which is a customary greeting in Thailand, and because of how unnatural it felt for me just growing up in an Australian context. It always felt like I had to be coerced into performing it around Thai family and friends and stuff like that at temple. And then within the show itself, it's relying on a lot of processes of embellishment and decoration and adornment in order to sort of like embody that sense of cultural expression as well.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot, definitely lots of conceptual content behind it. Thinking about your show in games, I feel like it's kind of lightened a lot from your this heavy conceptual works. Anyone else have a question to each others or?
I also want to ask Nathan a question.
No,
how do you find that the audience changed being on a platform digitally where you are able to engage with people compared to when you have a show in the physical space?
Yeah, I think that I think it's this idea of like, it made me very much more conscious of the fact that I was like bringing people into a space and like having to perform as a host. So I think there's a care factor there, which is different to just participating in a public forum, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's this sense of awareness that you're also building a world within a game, but you're still sort of like creating a space and inviting people into it. I think there's something tender about that as a gesture. And I think it's so much easier to focus on just one-on-one engagement like that, and I think it's a nice way to carry the work.
Would you do something like this again, Nathan, like an exhibition in this way?
I feel like now that I've gotten better at it, it might be a fun way to carry other installations of mine forward, to rebuild them in the space. I was joking with a friend earlier about how the home in the game is essentially like an international gallery, so I can just pop those lines on my CV every time I remount the show. So Slavitzia contemporary. So yeah. But no, I think it's a nice way of archiving the show. And honestly, like, I'm much more obliged to like archive it in the game than probably to just update my own website. Probably more motivation there.
Can I have a question for Zara as well? I just wondered about I was thinking about the idea of queering the angels, and I was wondering how, like, if the participants you're interacting with are themselves queer, or how that enacts itself in the project, the queering.
Yeah, well, for me, it was like about kind of distorting this angel that's seen very perfect and clear, or not clear, but like very clean. And so I kind of just like threw this like campness into the physical creation of them. So they're often like drenched in glitter and like bright pinks and these really queer appearing things.
Yeah.
And then I just find I've heard like a lot of discussions about like queering of gifting and how it's this gifting that you don't really know what's coming either way, and that's kind of the same as like being queer. You don't really know what you're receiving often, so that's also a reflection of that.
Yeah, I just thought it's interesting because I have like I'm sure a lot of people have almost like a kind of Christian association with angels, and yeah, I just respond to the idea of reclaiming that and sort of placing it into a different kind of community context. It's lovely.
Yeah, that's something that I actually often use, like different Christian icons throughout my work, growing up Catholic and now not identifying with that as such. Yeah.
Solitary race Catholic who later become queer. Been there, done that one.
Super encourage you to find a way to exhibit those. That would be such a beautiful show.
Hopefully.
It's not just that all three of us have found other ways to curate community projects and build worlds.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, artists are such world builders, and we rely so much on institutions to do it, but then when they're not there, we just still do it.
Yeah. And I think like it's somehow doing this direct contact with your audience or build your own exhibiting environment that's enrich artists' own practice. I'm imagining all of your creative process, in COVID time, and give you a purpose, on the days, and keep you hands busy, keep you like brain and mind and linking arts, and that's so good. Like, I think lots of artists and feel lost during the COVID times.
I think too what's interesting about these direct contacts with audiences is that in a way it's very empowering for people, because to get rid of that kind of institutional barrier and it gets rid of that almost like mystique and that like myth of the artist genius. And I feel like our audiences, particularly for us too, because we have participation from artists and non-artists, it like empowers people to make them feel like, oh, the work that I do matters. Like, I am creative, I do make work, even though an institution hasn't told me that I can be an artist, that I can call myself an artist. I can create work and share it with people, and it's valuable. And I think that same, Zara, your project does something similar, and showing work on a platform that's a quote unquote game, I think shows audiences that they can interact with art in a way that doesn't have to be this kind of elitist thing that it's often sold to people as.
Yeah. But then on the flip side as well, I feel like one of the things that doing projects outside of art institutions and in digital platforms, and not physically in spaces with communities, is that it really highlights how much I miss that as well. And I think a lot of people, like, you can talk about empowerment and how great it is all day, which I feel it is. We've all invented these new worlds and ways of doing things, but it's really highlighted for me how much I miss the physical contact, physical space, viewing art and making art and looking at other people's art in a tangible material interaction and interface, it's really showing me what I value and how much
the limitations.
Limitations of the digital. So even we made the digital platform to highlight within a digital platform the tangible of craft, because craft needs a tangible encounter, and so we wanted to kind of put it inside of Instagram, but still I'm like, I miss it so bad.
Yeah, totally. I think it's like the installations and in Nathan's work, and also Zara's received this physical work, but then she has to flatten it, scan it into a so I guess I totally get it what you just said. But I think, instead of choosing one or the other, maybe this will give a, new perspective to look at both, environment, I guess. But I think that overall, I think all of those projects is really empowering artists, and also like bring the art to in the large communities, not just within the artist. So you're all still doing this project? The project's still ongoing? Nathan, I know you'll kind of finish the touring, right, today?
Yeah, the show will still stay up in
end.
the game.
Yeah.
The show I will keep up in the game as long as there's interest in visiting it.
Yeah,
think that
Right. Any new project you're going to do, or you sort of just focus on this project that you are doing?
I'll be returning to some group shows later on in the year, so it'll be a relief to just get that sense of routine back. But on continuing the comment before about just missing being in spaces and seeing works physically, I miss that sense of awareness of being part of an audience of something. I think it's really easy to feel like, especially encountering things in isolation or in social distancing mode, is that feeling disembodied from other people encountering it at the same time. So I'll be very much happy to return to being part of an audience, a part of a captive audience again.
Right.
And also the problem is as well, when we get to a hybrid version of this world where people, we get back to some contact, but then we realize we have all these skills, that will be so much better in a way, because currently, my life is 50 hours a week on Zoom, and then toggling between 4 Instagram accounts. And so you can't, when someone goes, oh, come to my online show, you're like, no, I don't want to.
Had enough.
And it's later, when we're back to the world and we can go to exhibitions and we can meet our friends, and when someone says, oh, join my Zoom or this international artist talking together meeting, we'll be like, cool, totally want to do that.
Yeah.
Now you just need to have a break.
Version.
Yeah.
What I'm waiting for.
Moderation.
Yeah, moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like this kind of a COVID sort of isolation, and slowly, come to the end with all the restriction now is one by one is lifted up. And so I'm actually also thinking maybe this one might last, COVID special episode, just because now I can have people in my house to do these conversations. And really look forward to see you in real time, and enjoy your physical connections to your audience and art projects. And I guess I'll just end here. Thanks for all of you. Thanks for your time, and share your project and with me and with the audience. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy this episode and listening to all those great projects. This conversation was recorded a few weeks ago. I'm back in lockdown again. My home is in one of those hotspots in Melbourne. I guess it's still far from the end of COVID, but I hope you stay safe and keep well. Thanks for listening. Meet you next time. The soundtrack is created by Marcel Fairfair. The graphic is designed by Emmanuel Rodriguez.